What is going on, fight fans? So today we're going to talk about the Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney pay-per-view numbers. 1.5 million pay-per-view buys. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Now, the number of 1.5 million was put out there, put out into the world by Oscar De La Hoya.
I seriously think this is way bigger than Tank versus
Do you think it breaks the pay-per-view of 1.2 million?
Yes, it does.
What would be a perfect number?
1.5?
Oscar De La Hoya predicted that this fight will essentially top the Tank Davis fight with Ryan Garcia, and Tank Davis doing around 1.2 million, which is an insane success during the post Floyd Mayweather era, because obviously that is where every pay-per-view is being measured by. So if you hit 650,000, that is essentially like hitting a million back when Floyd Mayweather was doing his millions pay-per-view buys. But in the post Floyd Mayweather era, there has been so many different things that are keeping people from hitting that 1 million mark, and it's only been hit a few times after Floyd Mayweather. Canelo Alvarez has hit it from time to time with Gennady Golovkin, with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., and of course, the most recent one was Tank versus Ryan Garcia. Now, the numbers for this pay-per-view and what they actually are will be incredibly important moving forward for political ground, as that is what boxing is. It's basically, other than the fight itself, it's just 100% politics. And sometimes even during the fight, it becomes political as well, but mainly it's all about politics. With Oscar De La Hoya saying it's going to hit 1.5 million, that is a political move to try to move the needle or get, people to rally behind it so that it can get close to 1.5 million. But maybe he felt that it really wasn't going to make 1.5 and that he was just trying to shoot for the stars and land on the moon. Because even if this does 500,000 pay-per-view buys in the post Floyd Mayweather era, that would be a successful pay-per-view. Now, Devin Haney's best pay-per-view performance was against Lomachenko, and it did about 150,000 pay-per-view buys. Devin Haney versus Regis Prograis unfortunately did around 50,000 pay-per-view buys, which is abysmal in the pay-per-view era. So clearly the 150,000 pay-per-view buys was pulled more from Lomachenko than it was from Devin Haney, as proven with his fight with Regis Prograis. This is why this fight is super critical, because Devin Haney is bigger and probably more known to a lot of people than many of Tank Davis's opponents. Tank Davis would do around 200 plus pay-per-view buys with opponents that people had never heard of. People like Hector Garcia. He was doing really good pay-per-view numbers with fighters that people barely even knew. My prediction, based off of the buzz pre-fight, before the fight. This is how I predict pay-per-views, and I've predicted a lot of pay-per-views accurately. Go to my videos in the past on this channel looking at pay-per-view buy predictions. I'm pretty accurate because there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that can get you to what the number is going to be. Although this is a little bit more difficult to do because it's through the DAZN funnel, we won't know exactly for sure. It was always easier to figure out what the pay-per-view buys were if it's on the same funnel. So for example, there were millions upon millions of views for Ryan Garcia versus Tank press conferences and their all access episodes for Showtime. So through those channels, you're able to say, okay, well, if they have 6 million or 7 million views consistently, up to from 5 to 7 million views consistently on all these press conference stuff and all these different things that are leading up to the fight, you could discern from that maybe they'll hit 1 million pay-per-views, because just because you have 7 million views on something that is free does not mean that you will have 7 million views on something that costs money. Plus, who knows how many repeat views those are. So funneling everything down, averaging everything out, roughly it comes to around 1 million pay-per-views. And that's where it landed. If you look at stuff like Crawford versus Errol Spence, that was doing like 2 million, 1 to 2 to 3 million. They fell in the realm of around 700,000, 600 to 700,000 pay-per-views, right? Looking at all of their pre-fight stuff and how many views that was getting. On DAZN, they had their 40 days, which is somewhat like All Access, that never went above 600,000 views for each of those episodes. So basically, if you were to one-for-one it with the All Access, it will be in a very bad position to do really good pay-per-view numbers. However, because the funnel is different, where people may not even know that DAZN has their own All Access, it still might not determine their ability to want to watch the DAZN pay-per-view. And I'm not 100% sure, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think that the pay-per-view for DAZN was still available through just the normal cable pay-per-view outlet without a subscription, but you have to pay $10 more. That could be the case. Now, there has been videos that have come out with 10 million views on the DAZN platform in regards to the fight. However, that video is a highlight video of the fight, and that could actually be evidence that it didn't do well, believe it or not, because if so many people watched the highlights, that means that the fight was so buzzed and exciting after it happened that people started funneling to find out what exactly happened. And 10 million means that that was a lot of people trying to find out what exactly happened. Of course, there's going to be people that watch the fight and just want to see the highlights, and it's going to have a lot of mixture. But 10 million is such a high number for a DAZN video, especially when you look at all the videos leading up to it, doing about 567,000, 530,000, 430,000. And for the highlight video to do 10 million, it appears that the circumstantial evidence of just looking at it at face value would mean that a lot of people started funneling in after the excitement and the buzz of what actually happened. It's unfortunate that they couldn't use what actually happened to sell the fight, because the chicken has to come before the egg in this situation, or the egg before the chicken, whatever it is. It was a fight worth the pay-per-view buy, 100%. One of the most exciting fights I've ever seen, but you don't know that until it happens. So that can never be a selling point to the fight. The fight being good is never a selling point to the fight. You have to predict that the fight is going to be good. And in this instance, a lot of people thought that Ryan Garcia was in over his head. So with all of those numbers tabulated and put together, looking at the different circumstantial evidence of all of the different videos that have come out with Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney before the fight, the press conference, etc., the numbers that they pulled on that would lead me to believe that it will do no more than around 250,000 pay-per-view buys and possibly 150,000 pay-per-view buys. So anywhere from 150 to 250,000 pay-per-view buys is my prediction. Now, at the time of this recording, the numbers have not come out officially. There's no official numbers. Some people are saying it hit 1 million. Some people are saying it did horrible without giving an actual figure. There's no official numbers that are out there. But from my experience looking at all of these different pre-fight stuff and the numbers that it got, granted, putting it on a little bit of a curve based off of it being through channels that are being funneled through channels that it normally isn't funneled through, like Showtime versus DAZN, I'm going to say 150,000 to 250,000. Now, if it does not break 200,000, then Tank will have all the leverage in the world, because at this point, it will be clear that Tank is the person that is moving the money, and that Ryan was just the perfect dance partner for Tank, as opposed to Tank being the perfect dance partner for Ryan. So these numbers are incredibly important because they will determine the political landscape for boxing moving forward. And Tank will be able to claim that he is the sole face of boxing, as he is the one doing the most pay-per-view buys out of all of his contemporaries. Now, of course, you could say, well, this is because Ryan had a loss and Tank didn't have a loss, and we don't really know for sure who was the selling point at that time. That's fine, and that is a valid proposition. However, we are talking about the past, and we are here in the present. The value that Ryan Garcia will be here in the present, even though his stock definitely rose after the fight, they can still point at the fight numbers and say, well, these are your numbers. And when I was fighting somebody that people barely knew, and Devin Haney is way more known than these guys, I did the same, if not better numbers. All right, that is my take on the Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia pay-per-view buys. I do not think it is going to hit the 1.5 million buys that Oscar De La Hoya has predicted, but I would love to be proven wrong. I would love to be proven wrong, but the lead up stuff and all the different circumstantial evidence based off the viewership plus pirating, which is a big problem. You can't say, oh, Ryan didn't do that because of pirating, because no one's doing numbers because of pirating. If it did 1.2 million, really, truly, it probably did 2 million pay-per-views, but we don't know that because people are pirating boxing content. So you can't use pirating for your favorite fighter, but not talk about it when it comes to another fighter, right? You can't say Devin Haney only did 50,000, but then when Devin Haney fights Ryan Garcia, you can't say, oh, it's because of pirating, because all of them are because of pirating. The number we get is a number that's on a curve based off of how accessible pirating boxing content has become after Floyd Mayweather. That is it, guys. If you want to see my breakdown on the fight with Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia posted right after the fight, I will have the breakdown right here.